The alarm bells rang through the massive research ship Harmony's Edge like angry wasps. Dr. Sarah Chen looked up from her lab work, watching the red warning lights flash across her equipment. She had been working on plant samples when the noise started. Now she listened to the announcement that would change everything. All crew to stations. Unknown vessel detected. Repeat, unknown vessel detected. Sarah walked quickly to the main deck. The bridge was busy with activity. Captain HFY stood tall in the center, his blue skin darker than usual. The Veltari always changed color when stressed. Around him, the crew worked at their stations. There were 7 different alien species on this ship, but Sarah was the only human. None of them knew what she really was. What do we have? Captain HFY asked his science officer. It's a derelict ship, Captain. No life signs, no power readings. But the design is unknown. It doesn't match any ship in our databases. Sarah moved closer to look at the screen. Her heart beat faster when she saw the ship. It was human-made. She recognized the old Earth design immediately. The ship looked damaged and empty, floating in space like a dead fish. Should we investigate? Asked Security Chief Vortak. The big crag warrior always wanted action. His species lived for battle and glory. Captain HFY thought for a moment. Yes, but carefully. Take a small team. Check for survivors first, then see what we can learn. Sarah stepped forward. Captain, I would like to join the team. As a xenobiologist, I might be able to help identify any unknown life forms. The captain nodded. Good thinking, Dr. Chen. Your telepathic abilities might be useful if we find survivors. Sarah almost smiled. The crew believed she was from a telepathic species called the Mindari. It was a useful lie that explained how she sometimes knew things she shouldn't. In reality, she was just very good at reading body language and facial expressions. Humans were excellent at that. The salvage team included Sarah, Security Chief Vortak, Engineer Klix, and 2 other crew members. They took a small shuttle to the derelict ship. As they got closer, Sarah could see the damage more clearly. Something had torn holes in the hull. The ship's name was barely visible. Pioneer's Dream. The damage looks like weapon fire, Vortak said, checking his scanner. But also something else. Like something tried to claw its way out. They docked with the derelict ship and put on their suits. The airlocks opened with a hiss. Inside the ship was dark and cold. Their lights cut through the darkness as they moved carefully through the corridors. Blood, Klix said, pointing to dark stains on the walls. The crystalline engineer's voice sounded worried through the radio. But I cannot identify the species. Sarah looked at the stains. It was human blood, but she couldn't say that. Instead, she said, the pattern suggests a struggle. Multiple individuals, possibly different species. They found the crew quarters first. The rooms were torn apart. Furniture was broken. Walls were scratched, and there were more bloodstains everywhere. It looked like a battle had happened here. What could do this? Asked one of the crew members. Sarah examined the scratch marks on the walls. They were made by human fingernails, but she made them sound mysterious. These marks suggest claws or natural weapons. Very strong ones. In the ship's main computer, they found partial records. Most of the data was corrupted, but they could see that the ship had been exploring unknown space when something went wrong. The last entry talked about finding something on a planet, something that came back with them. Look at this, Vortak called from the escape pod bay. 1 pod was missing. Someone got away. Sarah felt relief, but she hid it. Or something, she said instead. We should check the pod's trajectory. Back on Harmony's Edge, the crew gathered in the main briefing room. Captain HFY listened as Vortak gave his report. The room was filled with worried voices from different species, all talking at once. The evidence suggests that this ship picked up some kind of dangerous creature, Sarah said when it was her turn to speak. Based on the damage patterns in the missing escape pod, I believe this creature is still alive. But where is it now? Asked the captain. Sarah looked at her tablet, pretending to analyze data. The escape pod's trajectory suggests it was heading toward this sector. If the creature survived, it could be anywhere within a 3-day travel radius. The room went quiet. Everyone was thinking the same thing. You think it could have reached our ship? Vortak asked. Sarah nodded slowly. It's possible. If this creature is as intelligent as it appears to be, it might have found a way aboard during our investigation. Captain HFY stood up. All department heads report any unusual incidents in the past week. Anything strange, no matter how small. As the crew talked, Sarah remembered all the small things she had done recently. She had been very careful, but there were traces. The hydroponics bay where she grew earth plants for food, the maintenance tunnel she used to move around unseen, the computer system she had quietly accessed to learn more about the ship and crew. "Actually, Captain," said Engineer Clicks, "there have been some small system failures. Nothing serious but unusual. Power fluctuations in Sections 7 and 12. Some atmospheric readings that didn't make sense. Sarah had caused those problems while exploring the ship, but now they worked in her favor. Those could be signs of tampering. Many Deathworld species are naturally good with technology." "Deathworld species?" asked the captain. Sarah explained, using the knowledge she had gathered about galactic legends. "There are stories about planets so dangerous that any species that survives there becomes incredibly strong and adaptable. The galaxy calls them Deathworlders. They're supposed to be myths, but this evidence suggests they might be real." The fear in the room was real now. Sarah could smell it, literally. Human senses were much stronger than most aliens realized. She continued her explanation, making herself sound like an expert. "If a Deathworlder is on our ship, it would be extremely dangerous. They adapt quickly, learn fast, and can survive in conditions that would kill most of us. Worse, they're natural hunters. They understand other species' weaknesses instinctively." Captain HFY ordered increased security patrols and asked all crew to report anything unusual immediately. As the meeting ended, crew members left quickly, whispering among themselves. Sarah stayed behind to talk with the captain privately. "Sir, I recommend we increase our search efforts. If there really is a Deathworlder on board, we need to find it quickly before it learns too much about us." "What do you suggest, Dr. Chen?" "Let me coordinate the search. My telepathic abilities might help me sense this creature's presence. Also, my knowledge of xenobiology could help us understand its behavior." The captain agreed, and Sarah felt satisfied. Now she was in control of the hunt for herself. She could guide the search away from her real hiding places while learning more about the crew's fears and reactions. As she walked back to her quarters, Sarah thought about her situation. She had been alone on this ship for months, studying these aliens and learning their ways. When the derelict human ship appeared, she knew it would create problems. But now she saw an opportunity. She could use their fear to study them more closely. She could learn how different species reacted to danger, how they worked together, and what their weaknesses were. This information would be valuable when humans finally made official contact with the galactic community. But first, she had to stay hidden. She had to be the perfect monster they expected, while actually protecting them from the real dangers she had discovered on their ship. It would be a delicate game, but Sarah was confident she could play it well. After all, humans were very good at games. The next morning, Sarah watched the crew divide into search teams. Captain HFY had taken her advice seriously. Every corridor, every room, every maintenance shaft would be checked. The aliens moved in groups of 3, carrying scanners and weapons. They looked nervous. Sarah joined Team Alpha with Security Chief Vortak and Communications Officer Talin. The 3-eyed Talin kept looking over her shoulder as they walked through the lower decks. "Dr. Chen," Vortak said, "tell us more about these Deathworlders. What should we expect?" Sarah had spent all night preparing her story. She made her voice sound worried. "From what I've read in the old galactic archives, Deathworlders are master survivors. They can copy the behavior of other species perfectly. You might not know one is standing right next to you." Talin's middle eye focused on Sarah. "They can pretend to be other species. More than pretend. They study their targets completely. They learn how you move, how you think, what you fear. Then they use that knowledge against you." Sarah paused dramatically. "The scariest part is that they enjoy the hunt. For them, it's not just about survival. It's about winning." As they searched, Sarah guided the team away from areas where she had left traces of her presence. When Vortak wanted to check the hydroponics bay, she suggested they focus on the engineering sections first. "The creature would need to understand our ship's systems," she explained. "It would start by learning how we generate power and life support." In the engineering section, Sarah secretly activated some minor equipment failures. Lights flickered and a ventilation fan made grinding noises. She pretended to sense something with her fake telepathic powers. "Wait," she said, closing her eyes and touching her forehead. "I'm getting something. Fear, anger, intelligence. It's been here recently." Vortak raised his weapon, looking around carefully. "Where?" "It's hard to tell. The mental signature is fading. But this creature is definitely on our ship, and it's learning our systems. They found scratches on some of the equipment panels, Sarah had made them herself during her earlier explorations, but now they served as evidence. "Look at these marks," she said, examining the scratches with her scanner. "They're not random. The creature was accessing our computer systems. It's trying to understand how our ship works." The search continued for hours. Each team reported small signs of intrusion, but never found the creature itself. Sarah made sure of that. Whenever teams got close to her real hiding spots, she used her knowledge of the ship to create distractions elsewhere. During the lunch break, the teams gathered to share information. Sarah listened as the aliens described their findings. They were scared and confused. "Perfect. I've been analyzing the evidence," Sarah announced to the group. "This Deathworlder is more dangerous than I first thought. It's not just surviving on our ship. It's studying us." "What do you mean?" asked Captain HFY. Sarah pulled up a map of the ship on the main screen. She had marked all the locations where teams had found evidence. "Look at the pattern. The creature has been to our communications center, our computer core, our medical bay, and our crew quarters. It's not looking for food or shelter. It's gathering intelligence about us." Engineer Clicks made a worried clicking sound. "Intelligence for what purpose?" "To replace us one by one." Sarah let that sink in before continuing. "Deathworlders are natural mimics. This one is learning how each of our species looks, sounds, and behaves. Soon it could take the place of any one of us." The room became very quiet. Sarah could see the fear growing in their eyes. She continued her performance. "There's something else. My telepathic readings suggest this creature has been watching us for some time, maybe weeks. It knows our routines, our relationships, our weaknesses." Talin's 3 eyes were wide with terror. "How can we trust each other if it might be any one of us?" Sarah stood up and walked to the front of the room. "We need to be smarter than it is. I suggest we implement regular bioscans for everyone. Also, we should use code words that only the real crew members would know." Captain HFY agreed immediately. "Good thinking, Dr. Chen. Also, no one travels alone anymore. Always in groups of 3 or more." As the meeting ended, Sarah noticed how the crew looked at each other with suspicion. Her plan was working perfectly. They were so focused on finding the mysterious Deathworlder that they weren't paying attention to what she was really doing. That evening, Sarah visited the ship's computer core. She needed to access the long-range communications array without being detected. The ship's AI area was sophisticated but not suspicious. Sarah had been slowly introducing small changes to the system for weeks. "Aria, I need to run a deep scan of all crew biosignatures. We're looking for anomalies that might indicate shapeshifting or mimicry." "Of course, Dr. Chen. Shall I include your own biosignature in the scan?" "Yes, scan everyone. We can't be too careful." While Aria ran the scan, Sarah made subtle changes to the communication logs. She altered some records to make it look like someone had been sending unauthorized messages. She also modified some personnel files to create small inconsistencies that would make the crew even more paranoid. The next day brought new developments. During the morning briefing, Vortak reported finding an unauthorized access point in the main computer. "Someone has been reading our personal files," he announced angrily. "Crew records, mission reports, even private messages." Sarah gasped in fake surprise. "It's learning about our personal lives. This is exactly what I expected. The creature is building profiles of each crew member." Captain HFY looked troubled. "What's the purpose of these profiles?" "To replace us more effectively. If it knows our friends, our habits, our secrets, it can pretend to be any one of us perfectly." Sarah paused. "Captain, I hate to suggest this, but we need to consider that it might have already replaced someone." The room erupted in worried voices. Crew members began looking at each other suspiciously. Sarah had to hide her satisfaction. The paranoia was spreading exactly as she had planned. "How can we tell?" asked Medical Officer Helix, her tentacles writhing nervously. Sarah had prepared for this question. "I've been working on a test. Using my telepathic abilities, I might be able to detect if someone's mental patterns don't match their species' normal signature." It was complete nonsense, but the aliens didn't know that. They were desperate for any solution. "Would you be willing to scan all of us?" Captain HFY asked. "Of course, Captain. But I need to warn you. This process is mentally exhausting for me. I can only scan a few crew members each day." This gave Sarah more time to continue her game. Over the next few days, she would scan each crew member and declare them clean. But the delay would keep the paranoia alive. As the meeting ended, Sarah made one final suggestion. "Captain, I recommend we limit access to critical ship systems. If the Deathworlder is learning our technology, we need to prevent it from taking control of life support or navigation. The captain agreed and immediately implemented new security protocols. Sarah smiled to herself. Now she had a perfect excuse for any system irregularities she might cause. That night, as she prepared for sleep, Sarah reviewed her progress. The crew was scared, suspicious of each other, and completely focused on finding a threat that didn't exist the way they imagined. Meanwhile, she was learning everything about their species, their technology, and their society. But Sarah also felt a small stab of guilt. These aliens weren't evil. They were explorers and scientists, much like humans. They didn't deserve to be terrorized. She reminded herself that this was necessary. When humans eventually made contact with galactic civilization, they would need every advantage they could get. Understanding alien psychology and technology could mean the difference between peaceful integration and catastrophic conflict. Besides, she wasn't actually hurting anyone. The fear was temporary, and the knowledge she gained would help both species in the long run, at least. That's what she told herself as she drifted off to sleep, while outside her door, alien security guards patrolled the corridors, looking for a monster that was already among them. Sarah found Engineer Clix in maintenance shaft C7, exactly where she had left him. The crystalline being was unconscious but breathing steadily. She had used a mild sedative from the medical bay, something that would wear off in a few hours without permanent damage. She activated her communicator. Emergency. I found Clix in shaft C7. He's alive but unconscious. Medical team to maintenance level immediately. Within minutes, the area was full of crew members. Medical Officer Helix arrived first, her tentacles working quickly to check Clix's vital signs. Captain Zexhai and Security Chief Fortak followed close behind. What happened? The captain demanded. Sarah knelt beside Clix, pretending to examine him with her scanner. I was following some unusual energy readings when I found him like this. His biosigns are stable, but there are strange marks on his outer shell. She pointed to some scratches she had carefully made on Clix's crystalline surface. They looked like claw marks but were actually harmless surface scratches. The Deathworlder attacked him, Fortak growled, his warrior instincts making him angry. Why didn't it kill him? Sarah stood up slowly, making her expression thoughtful and worried. That's what concerns me most. This wasn't a killing strike. The creature was studying him. Look at the pattern of the marks. They're precise, almost surgical. Medical Officer Helix confirmed that Clix would recover completely. He has no memory of the attack. Something affected his memory centers. Memory extraction, Sarah said quietly. The Deathworlder was downloading his knowledge. Everything Clix knows about our ship's engineering systems is now in that creature's mind. The fear in the corridor was thick enough to cut. Sarah could smell the chemical changes in their alien biology as stress hormones flooded their systems. It's learning how to control our ship, Captain Zexhai said, his blue skin turning almost black with worry. Worse than that, Captain. If it can extract memories, it can learn to perfectly imitate any one of us. Not just how we look or sound, but how we think and remember. As they carried Clix to the medical bay, Sarah walked beside Captain Zexhai. Sir, I need to tell you something privately. My telepathic scans of the crew have revealed some disturbing information. In his ready room, Sarah sat across from the captain and made her expression grave. Captain, I believe the Deathworlder has been influencing some crew members' thoughts. Not replacing them, but subtly changing their behavior patterns. Which crew members? Zexhai asked immediately. Sarah had prepared a careful list. Communications Officer Tillin has been asking unusual questions about Earth history. Science Officer Peldon has been accessing files about human mythology. Even Engineer Clix, before his attack, was showing interest in Deathworld survival techniques. None of this was true, but Sarah knew the captain would start watching his crew more carefully. The increased suspicion would serve her purposes perfectly. What do you recommend, Dr. Chen? Isolation protocols. Anyone showing unusual behavior should be quarantined and tested. Also, I think we need to consider that the creature might have allies. Allies? Sarah nodded seriously. Some Deathworld species are social hunters. They work in packs. There might be more than one creature on our ship. Captain Zexhai called an emergency meeting. The entire crew gathered in the main briefing room, but now they sat farther apart from each other. Trust was breaking down exactly as Sarah had planned. Based on recent events and Dr. Chen's analysis, We're implementing new security measures, the captain announced. Bioscans every 4 hours. No one is allowed in critical ship areas alone. All personal communications are temporarily suspended. Science Officer Peldan raised a tentacle. Captain, these restrictions will make it difficult to perform our research duties. Sarah saw her opportunity. That's exactly what the creature wants. It's trying to disrupt our normal operations to create chaos. In chaos, it can move more freely. Then what do you suggest? Peldan asked, his tone slightly irritated. Sarah studied his face carefully. Your reaction is interesting, Peldan. Why are you more concerned about research than crew safety? The room went silent. Every eye turned to look at the science officer. Peldan's tentacles curled defensively. I'm simply trying to maintain our mission parameters, Peldan said. Are you? Sarah stood up and walked around the table toward him. Because my telepathic readings suggest you've been having unusual thoughts lately. Thoughts about Earth cultures, human behavioral patterns, survival techniques from deadly planets. Peldan's skin changed color, a sign of extreme stress in his species. I was researching to help find this creature. Or you were gathering intelligence for it. Sarah let the accusation hang in the air. Captain, I recommend immediate isolation for Officer Peldan until we can determine if he's been compromised. Vortak was already moving, his hand on his weapon. But Captain Zexhai held up a restraining gesture. Peldan, report to Isolation Chamber 3, Dr. Chen. I want you to perform a deep telepathic scan. As security escorted the confused science officer away, Sarah felt the paranoia in the room reach a new level. Now they weren't just afraid of the unknown creature. They were afraid of each other. Over the next day, Sarah performed her fake telepathic examination of Peldan. She emerged from the isolation chamber looking exhausted and troubled. The creature has been in his mind, she reported to Captain Zexhai, but Peldan himself is still authentic. The Deathworlder was using him as an information source without completely taking over his personality. Can you undo the influence? I've disrupted the connection, but we need to assume the creature now knows everything Peldan knows about our science operations and research data. Sarah was actually proud of her performance. She had created a perfect explanation for any inconsistencies in crew behavior, while making herself seem even more valuable as their protector against the invisible threat. The ship's AI, Area, began experiencing problems. Sarah had been slowly introducing corrupted code into the system's subroutines. Now the effects were becoming noticeable. Area keeps giving conflicting reports, reported communications officer Talin. Sometimes it says there are life signs in empty corridors. Other times it fails to detect crew members who are clearly present. Sarah nodded knowingly. The Deathworlder is attacking our AI. It's trying to make us blind and deaf to its movements. She volunteered to work with the engineering team to fix Area's problems. This gave her perfect access to continue her subtle sabotage while appearing to help solve the crisis. In the computer core, Sarah worked alongside engineer Clicks, who had recovered from his attack with no memory of what happened. These corruptions are very sophisticated, Clicks observed, his crystalline form reflecting the computer displays, almost like the AI is being reprogrammed rather than simply damaged. That's because it is, Sarah said. Deathworlders are naturally gifted with technology. They understand systems instinctively. This creature is turning our own ship against us. As she worked, Sarah made sure to fix some problems while creating others. She needed to maintain the illusion that she was helping while keeping the crew off balance. The breaking point came when Talin reported seeing someone moving through the corridors who disappeared. Whenever security arrived to investigate, it was definitely humanoid, Talin insisted during the evening briefing. But when I tried to follow, there was no one there. Like a ghost. Sarah made her expression very serious. Not a ghost. The creature is testing our response times and security patterns. It's preparing for something. Preparing for what? Captain Zexhai asked. I believe it's getting ready to take over the ship completely. It's been studying our systems, our crew, our procedures. Now it's ready to make its move. The captain ordered full battle stations. All crew members were assigned to secured areas with multiple guards. No one was allowed to move through the ship alone under any circumstances. That night, Sarah lay in her quarters listening to the sounds of the frightened ship around her. Guard patrols walked the corridors constantly. The hum of overworked security systems filled the air. Her alien colleagues were exhausted from fear and stress. Part of her felt guilty for terrorizing these innocent beings. but she reminded herself that this was necessary research. When humanity finally revealed itself to the galaxy, they would need to understand how other species reacted to stress, how their social structures broke down under pressure, and what their military capabilities were. Still, as she listened to Talin crying softly in the next cabin, Sarah wondered if she was taking this experiment too far. The line between necessary research and cruel manipulation was becoming harder to see. Tomorrow, she decided, she would begin preparing for the final phase of her plan. It was time to bring this psychological experiment to its conclusion before she caused permanent damage to these people who had unknowingly become her test subjects. But first, she needed to create one more crisis that would force them to work together, something that would show her how they responded when facing what they believed was certain death. Sarah stumbled into the bridge, her clothes torn and her face covered with artificial cuts she had made using medical supplies. The crew turned to look at her in shock. Captain HFY jumped up from his command chair. "Dr. Chen, what happened?" Sarah collapsed into a nearby chair, breathing heavily. "I found it. I found the Deathworlder." She paused, looking around at the concerned faces. "It nearly killed me." Security Chief Vortak was at her side immediately, scanner in hand. "Where? What did you see?" "The central core section. I was following my telepathic readings when it attacked." Sarah touched the fake wounds on her face. "It's horrible. Worse than anything I imagined." Medical Officer Helix began treating Sarah's injuries while she continued her story. "It's not just strong. It's intelligent. It spoke to me." The bridge went completely silent. Captain HFY leaned forward. "It spoke? What did it say?" Sarah made her voice shake with fear. "It knows everything about us. Our names, our histories, our fears. It said it has been watching us for months, learning from us." She looked directly at the captain. "It said the hunt is almost over." "The hunt?" Vortak growled, his warrior instincts making him reach for his weapon. "We're not the hunters, Vortak. We never were. We're the prey. This creature has been playing with us from the beginning." Sarah stood up slowly, wincing as if in pain. "But I heard it. My telepathic abilities seem to cause it distress. It's wounded now and desperate." Captain HFY called for all senior staff to gather immediately. Within minutes, the bridge was filled with the ship's department heads. Sarah noticed how they all stayed away from the windows and kept looking over their shoulders. "Dr. Chen believes the creature is wounded and cornered in the central core," Captain HFY explained. "This might be our only chance to capture or destroy it." Engineer Clicks made worried clicking sounds. "The central core contains our main computer systems and life support controls. If the creature damages those systems, we'll all die," finished Communications Officer Talin, her 3 eyes wide with terror. Sarah nodded grimly. "That's probably its plan. If it can't escape, it will try to take us all with it." She paused dramatically. "But my telepathic connection to it is stronger now. I can track its exact location." "It's too dangerous," Medical Officer Helix protested. "You're injured and your telepathic abilities have been strained. I'm the only one who can sense it directly. Without me, you'll be walking blind into its trap." Sarah looked at each crew member in turn. "This creature has been manipulating us from the start. It's time to end this." Captain HFY made his decision. "We go together. Full security team, all senior staff. We corner this thing and finish it." As they prepared for the final confrontation, Sarah made careful adjustments to the ship's environmental systems. She modified the lighting in the central core section, created atmospheric pressure variations, and programmed the gravity controls to respond to her hidden commands. The hunting party consisted of 12 crew members, all heavily armed and nervous. Sarah led them through the ship's corridors, guiding them toward the central core while secretly preparing her final performance. "I can feel it getting stronger," she whispered as they approached the core section. "It knows we're coming. Be ready for anything." They entered the central core area, a large chamber filled with the ship's main computer systems. The lighting was dim and flickering, creating dancing shadows that made everyone jumpy. Sarah had also introduced some low-frequency sounds that would make the aliens feel uneasy without knowing why. "There," Sarah pointed toward a section of computer banks. "It's hiding behind those systems. I can sense its thoughts. It's angry and afraid." Vortak signaled his security team to spread out and surround the area. The aliens moved carefully, weapons raised, watching every shadow. Sarah closed her eyes and touched her forehead, pretending to use her telepathic abilities. "Wait, something's wrong." There are multiple mental signatures. Either the creature is more complex than I thought, or what? Captain Zexai demanded. Or there's more than one of them. She activated the environmental controls she had prepared. The lights went out completely, plunging the chamber into darkness. Emergency lighting kicked in a moment later, but the red glow made everything look sinister. "It's moving," Sarah shouted. She used the gravity controls to make some loose equipment fall from upper shelves, creating noise and confusion. The crew spun around, trying to track sounds that seemed to come from everywhere at once. "Stay together," Vortok commanded, but his voice sounded less confident than usual. Sarah manipulated the atmospheric controls to create air currents that felt like something large moving through the chamber. She also triggered some of the computer systems to emit electronic screeches and static. "I can hear it breathing," T'Lyn whispered, her three eyes darting around wildly. "It's not breathing," Sarah said in a low, tense voice. "It's laughing." The psychological pressure was building perfectly. The crew was surrounded by evidence of the creature's presence, but couldn't actually see it. Their imagination was filling in the gaps with something far worse than reality. Sarah activated another environmental control, causing a section of the floor to vibrate. "It's underneath us. It's using the maintenance tunnels." The crew backed toward the center of the chamber, forming a defensive circle. They were exactly where Sarah wanted them. "Captain," she said urgently, "I need to try something. My telepathic abilities might be able to force the creature out of hiding, but I need everyone to be completely quiet." The chamber fell silent except for the sounds of the ship's systems and the crew's nervous breathing. Sarah pretended to concentrate deeply, building tension for her grand revelation. "I can see it clearly now," she whispered. "It's been studying us for so long, learning our weaknesses, our fears. It knows exactly how to break us." She paused, letting the silence stretch. Then she activated her final prepared effect, the chamber's communication system. Her own voice came through the speakers, but she had modified it to sound distorted and threatening. "You cannot hide from me. I know all your secrets." The crew looked around wildly, trying to locate the source of the voice. Sarah pretended to be as surprised as they were. "It's using our own systems against us," she gasped. "The creature has taken control of the ship's communication array," the distorted voice continued. "I have been watching you sleep. I know your dreams. I know your fears." Captain Zexai tried to contact the bridge, but Sarah had temporarily disrupted communications. "We're cut off," he reported grimly. "It's isolating us," Sarah said. "Classic predator behavior. Separate the prey from help, then strike." She triggered the gravity controls again, this time making everyone feel slightly lighter. The disorienting sensation added to their growing panic. "The gravity is fluctuating," Engineer Clicks observed, his crystalline form reflecting the red emergency lights. "It's affecting our ship's fundamental systems." The modified voice spoke again through the speakers. "Your technology is primitive. Your defenses are worthless. You are all going to die." Sarah pretended to fight against the creature's telepathic influence, making strained expressions and touching her head as if in pain. "It's trying to break into my mind," she said through gritted teeth. "I can't hold it back much longer. When I lose control, it will know everything I know about our defenses." The crew was now facing what they believed was their worst nightmare, a creature that was stronger, smarter, and more technologically advanced than they were, trapped with them in a confined space. "There has to be a way to fight it," Vortok said, but his voice lacked its usual confidence. Sarah looked at him with desperate eyes. "There is. But it requires all of us to work together perfectly. One mistake and we're all dead." She was ready for the final act of her performance. Everything had led to this moment when she would reveal the truth and see how they reacted. But first, she needed them to be completely dependent on her leadership. "I need you to trust me completely," she told the terrified crew. "Everything depends on what we do in the next few minutes." Outside the chamber, she heard the sound of her automated systems activating the ship's lockdown protocols. No one could get in or out. They were sealed in together for the grand finale. Sarah took a deep breath. It was time to end the game and face whatever consequences awaited her. Sarah stood in the center of the terrified crew and made her decision. She walked calmly to the main control panel and began entering commands. The chamber's lockdown protocols engaged with a solid thunk of heavy barriers sliding into place. "Dr. Chen, what are you doing?" Captain Zexai asked, confusion replacing fear in his voice. Sarah turned around to face them all. The emergency lighting cast red shadows across her face, but her expression was no longer frightened. Instead, she looked calm and analytical. "I'm ending this charade," she said simply. Her fingers moved across the control panel with practiced ease. The threatening voice stopped playing through the speakers. The gravity returned to normal. The atmospheric disturbances ceased. One by one, all the signs of the mysterious creature's presence disappeared. "You did this," Vortak said, his warrior instincts making him raise his weapon. "You're working with the creature." Sarah looked at him with patient eyes. "No, Vortak. There is no creature. There never was." She paused, watching their faces change as understanding began to dawn. "There is only me." The silence in the chamber was complete. 12 alien faces stared at her with expressions ranging from confusion to dawning horror. "I don't understand," Talin whispered, her 3 eyes fixed on Sarah. "The Deathworlder you've been hunting is standing right in front of you. It has been for months." Sarah's voice was gentle but clear. "I am human. I am what your legends call a Deathworlder." Engineer Clicks made shocked clicking sounds. "But you're one of us. You've been helping us hunt for the creature." "I've been studying you," Sarah corrected. "Learning how you think, how you react to stress, how your societies function under pressure. Everything you feared about the Deathworlder was true. We do adapt quickly. We do understand other species' weaknesses. We are natural hunters." She gestured around the chamber. "But we're also intelligent enough to hunt with our minds instead of our claws." Captain Zexai's blue skin had turned almost white. "The escape pod from the derelict ship was mine. I staged the entire scene aboard the Pioneer's Dream before abandoning it. I needed a convincing way to explain my presence in this sector." Sarah's expression became apologetic. "I'm sorry about the blood and damage. It was necessary to make the story believable." Medical Officer Helix extended a tentacle toward Sarah, then pulled it back. "But I've examined you. Your biology, your medical records are all carefully fabricated. Humans are very good at deception when necessary. We had to be to survive on our world." Sarah activated a wall display showing her real biological data. "This is what I actually am." The reading showed a bipedal mammalian species with remarkable physical capabilities, highly developed brain functions, and sensory abilities that surpassed most known species. "You've been lying to us for months," Captain Zexai said, his voice mixing hurt with anger. "Yes, but consider why." Sarah moved closer to them and they instinctively backed away. She stopped, noting their reaction. "When humans eventually make contact with galactic civilization, we need to understand what we're dealing with. Your reactions to the unknown, your military capabilities, your social structures under stress. This information could prevent catastrophic misunderstandings." Science Officer Peldan, who had been released from isolation that morning, spoke up. "The attacks on crew members, the system failures, the psychological manipulation were all carefully controlled experiments. No one was permanently harmed. Clicks, your memory loss was caused by a mild sedative, not brain surgery. The equipment failures were minor and easily reversible. The fear you felt was real, but the danger was not." She activated another control and the chamber's normal lighting returned. Without the red emergency glow, the space felt less threatening. "You terrorized us," Talin accused, her voice shaking with emotion. Sarah felt genuine regret. "Yes, I did. And I'm sorry for that. But consider the alternative. If humanity had made first contact without understanding your psychology, without knowing how to communicate with you properly, the results could have been war instead of cooperation." She walked to the display panel and brought up star charts showing Earth's location relative to their current position. "My people sent me ahead as a scout, to learn, to understand, to prepare the way for peaceful contact. Everything I've done has been toward that goal." Vortak still held his weapon, but his grip had loosened. "You could have killed us all at any time." "Yes, but I didn't. Because humans aren't the monsters your legends describe. We're survivors, yes. We're adaptable and intelligent and sometimes ruthless. But we're also capable of compassion and cooperation." Sarah gestured to the chambers around them. "I've had access to your ship's life support systems for weeks. I could have poisoned your air, depressurized your habitat sections, or caused reactor failures. Instead, I've been quietly fixing problems and preventing accidents that would have killed crew members." She activated a log display showing dozens of minor repairs and system adjustments she had made over the past months. The atmospheric fluctuations, In Section 7 that engineer Clicks reported, those were caused by a failing recycling unit. I fixed it before it could create toxic gas buildup. The power failures? A damaged conduit that was overheating and could have caused fires. I repaired it. Captain HFY studied the maintenance logs. You've been protecting us. Even while conducting my psychological experiments, I made sure no one would be seriously hurt. That's what humans call enlightened self-interest. We're more useful to each other as allies than as enemies. Medical Officer Helix moved her tentacles in what Sarah had learned was a gesture of deep thought. Your people sent you to spy on us. To understand you, Sarah corrected. There's a difference. Spies gather information to gain advantage over enemies. I've been gathering information to facilitate friendship. She deactivated the lockdown protocols and the chamber barriers retracted with a hiss. The crew could leave at any time, but none of them moved. What happens now? Captain HFY asked. Sarah considered the question carefully. That depends on you. You could report my presence to galactic authorities. Humans would be branded as infiltrators and deceivers before we ever had a chance at diplomatic contact. She paused, looking at each crew member. Or you could recognize that first contact between species is always complicated and sometimes requires unconventional approaches. You could help me prepare proper diplomatic channels for when humanity is ready to reveal itself officially. Engineer Clicks made thoughtful clicking sounds. How many humans are out there? Several billion on our homeworld with colonies on multiple planets in our system. We've been watching galactic civilization for decades, learning your languages and customs through intercepted communications. Sarah's expression became more serious. We know about your wars, your politics, your species conflicts. We also know about your achievements in science, art, and cooperation. And you want to join this civilization? Talin asked. We want to contribute to it. Humans have technologies and perspectives that could benefit everyone, but we also have capabilities that might frighten other species if misunderstood. Sarah gestured to herself. As you've seen. Vortak finally lowered his weapon completely. You played us perfectly. Every fear, every reaction, every decision we made was exactly what you expected. Not exactly what I expected. Better. You showed courage, loyalty, and dedication to protecting each other even when terrified. You worked together despite your differences. You trusted your leaders and followed them into danger. Sarah's expression showed genuine admiration. These are the qualities that give me hope for peaceful coexistence. Captain HFY was quiet for a long moment, clearly weighing his options. Finally, he spoke. Dr. Chen, or whatever your real name is, you've put us in an impossible position. My name really is Sarah Chen, and I know the position is difficult. But consider this. You now have knowledge that no other beings in the galaxy possess. You understand how humans think and operate. You could be the architects of the first peaceful first contact in galactic history. She moved to the star chart display and highlighted several systems. Humans are already spreading beyond our home system. Contact with galactic civilization is inevitable within the next decade. The question is whether that contact will be based on fear and misunderstanding, or on knowledge and cooperation. Medical Officer Helix spoke up. You said you've been protecting us while studying us. Can you prove that? Sarah accessed the ship's internal sensors and displayed a timeline of events over the past months. Here's what really happened each time you thought the creature was attacking someone. The display showed Sarah secretly repairing life support systems, preventing equipment failures, and even stopping a potential reactor coolant leak that could have been catastrophic. I've been your guardian angel while pretending to be your greatest fear, she said simply. The crew exchanged glances, silent communication passing between species that had worked together for years. Finally, Captain HFY made his decision. We'll need to make a full report to our superiors. Sarah nodded. I understand. Thank you for watching and comment for next part.